In order to learn how to effectively fingerpick, the first thing you need to understand is that there's really 3 different patterns that dominate the fretboard when you're doing fingerpicking, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start off with a D chord. It's a nice chord, easy chord to use for this. And what we're going to do, what you need to do is you need to make a choice in your fingerpicking what fingers you're going to be using. Often when you're playing folk style of fingerpicking, not classical style, but folk style, you're going to choose whether or not you're going to use 3 fingers or 4 fingers. The pinky, you certainly can use it, but you find a lot of people with their pinky will either brace it onto the guitar, okay? They'll put it on the guitar and stabilize their hand as they move, and they'll use that. I often do that, but you don't have to. I mean, you can hold yourself from your elbow here and you can play hovering over the strings as well. So what you need to do is as we start going through these patterns, I'm going to give you a couple of different options and I want you to keep exploring them to see which one seems like it feels the most comfortable to you. And once you find that one, you start gravitating toward it. That's probably what you're going to wind up doing in the long run. So I tend to use these 3 fingers with a technique called double thumbing more than I do these 4 fingers, simply because that's how I learned how to play. But I'm going to show you both different ways, and then you can decide what you want to do. So let's take this D chord, and the first thing we're going to do right now is we're just going to build a pattern that I'm going to refer to as toward the floor, which means we're just going to pick toward the floor. So with this D chord right here, what I want you to try and do, you can brace your pinky down onto the guitar. You can stabilize it if you want to, or you can just leave it open, whatever's good for you. You're going to pluck thumb, thumb, first, second. So you're going to assign fingers to strings. And the strings will change depending on the chord we're playing, but the pattern itself will just shift up or down depending on what it is that you're doing, what chord you're playing. So right now what I'm doing is I'm playing thumb, thumb, first, second. And my pinky is down stabilizing my hand so it's not moving all over, this X and Y axis thing. It's kind of stabilizing it that way. So I'm going thumb, thumb, first, second. Now the trick with fingerpicking is you'll see I'm kind of sitting at a thumbs up position here. If you try and play like this with your thumb way back here, it becomes very, very difficult and it looks really awkward. If you play right here, these 2 fingers are going to keep running into each other. So generally what you do is you turn in a little bit. You'll see how my wrist is turning out just a little bit like this, okay, as opposed to being back like this. And again, these are suggestions. You have to kind of figure out what works best for you as well. But I have a tendency of turning the wrist over just a little bit like this. So my thumb is over here. So I'm in a bit of a thumbs up position like this. Okay, so when I pluck, my thumb has freedom to move without hitting the other strings. The other 3 fingers, or the other fingers, I mean. So these other 3 fingers are grasping onto these strings, okay? They're holding onto those strings right now, and my thumbs up comes over the top like this, okay? And again, you got to figure out how comfortable to make it for yourself. You don't need to go way out like this, but somewhere in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, I'm going to plant that pinky down, and I'm going to hover. I'm going to lift up, so now those fingers are just kind of hovering over the strings that they want, and I'm going to go thumb, 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 first, and then second. So I have thumb, thumb, first, second. See, so I'm using my thumb twice, which is where the term double thumbing comes from. So in order to effectively learn how to do that, you've got to just get comfortable with being able to move that thumb back and forth like that. So I'm going toward the floor. I'm plucking 4th string, thumb, 3rd string, thumb, 2nd string, first finger, and 1st string, middle finger. See? Now, if you like the other way, what you're going to do is you're going to play thumb, first, second, and ring finger. And if you prefer that, that's okay too. Sometimes what happens is when you start doing that, the pinky might become a problem with bracing onto the guitar. So you might wind up lifting it up and then just kind of hovering, holding yourself steady with your elbow here. Playing that way. It can become really restrictive if you've got your pinky down and you're trying to use your third finger, because these two fingers kind of don't work really well when that happens. But again, that's entirely up to you. So if I was using a 4-finger method, I would lift my pinky up to give me more freedom. I would brace harder in here. See that? So it's up to you. Now the second step with this, before we move on to the next pattern, is I want you to start thinking about the dynamic at which you're picking. Okay? Try and make sure that your thumb and your other fingers are, in terms of volume, they're kind of the same volume. Unless you want something to be accented, you try and practice keeping them a similar volume. So you're not getting like one string that's... And again, unless you're trying to do that, unless it's something that you're working on for a particular project, but in general practice, just try and keep them all even. So you might have to push a little harder with the thumb or back off a little bit to try and balance the tone, balance the volume. Okay. Now the next pattern that we're going to talk about is moving towards the ceiling. So we're going to go the opposite direction, but we are still going to start with the bass note. So we're going to pluck the 4th string, then we're going to head down here to the 1st string, and we're going to play 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So we're going to go... And again, you can use those fingers, you can use these. That, whatever works for you, but just explore those, because it's a pretty big deal to make that choice and which one is going to be most comfortable for you, because it kind of defines your journey from here on out with finger picking. Okay, and then the next thing, the third pattern that we're going to do is an in and out pattern. So what there's a number of these that we can do, but we're going to start by playing 4th string with the thumb, 2nd string with the index finger, 3rd string with the thumb, and then the 1st string with the middle finger. So again, I've assigned fingers to strings and nothing's changing. It's still going to keep doing that. See? So that's an in and out pattern. I'm going from 4 to 2 and then 3 to 1. It's a really pretty sounding pattern. Now the next thing I can do is I can alternate that by choosing a different kind of pattern. So maybe I'll do 4 to 1 and then 2 to 3. So I have 4, 1, 2, 3. Still in and out, just a different style. So in my playing, the way I summarize these for the most part, now we can keep embellishing to grand scales here, but to begin with finger picking, the easiest way to view this is just looking at 3 different kinds of patterns. Either you're moving towards the floor, you're moving towards the ceiling, or you're moving in and out, right? So either one of those, and as you practice these, you want to really think about your tempo, keeping the movements between the strings even in terms of your movements and your speed. And the other thing is your dynamics, making sure that unless you really are trying to accent something, they're all pretty even in terms of their volume, right? So that's the first place to start when you're really trying to build finger picking, learning how to finger pick. The choices you have to make: do you want to grasp onto the guitar? Do you want to stabilize, or do you want to hover, right? Which one do you want to do? And that may be dependent on the fingers that you choose. It may not, but those are just different things, again, to make you aware of.